Hi folks, this is Patrice here. Welcome to that session on improvising. On that video today, I'm going to explain you a few different things about improvisation. I compiled for you 9 reasons why your improvisations or solo are not so great. You know, you learning your scales and you start to have them well, you might have noticed that it's not so easy to make up a solo and do something with your scales. So I put together in this video 9 most common reasons why our improvising is not great, and the things to do in order to get started the right way or get better in improvising. Some points would be more technical, and other would be more general common sense, but it's good to have them in mind. Okay, let's get started. So the first point, the first reason why your solo doesn't sound so great is that you don't know your scales enough. You think, well, the right statement would be, you think you know your scales, but actually you don't know them that well. That's the thing. For example, you know, when we've learned the 5 position of the pentatonic, let's say, for example, you've learned all your vertical positions just like that. And then the next positions and so on. And, you know, we assume, as I did, you know, a long time ago, that it's just enough, that's great, we know the positions, we've done our job. Well, in fact, there's a little bit more than that. One of the things you can start doing is have a look at the major scales. Although the pentatonic can fit everywhere, the major scale couldn't fit in any background music, but it gives you more options, more melodic ways to play your solos. So it's good to have a look at that. But if you only have the pentatonic or the blues scales down for now, it's perfectly okay. It's good enough to take into account what I'm about to explain you here. Okay, so first of all, don't get locked up into those vertical positions. You know, when you learn the scale, you have all the vertical positions done. I mean, it's great, but don't get locked into this. You need to be able to go across. You know, you can use, for example, the motorways. But not only this, but you have to be able to, at any point in the scale, just to go across, really. And for example, you need to be able to play the scale over 1 string or 2. You know, you need to, as the same way as you're comfortable going north-south in this direction vertically, you need to be able to play east-west and in diagonal positions as well with the motorways. So you need also to kill all the hesitation that you have. Let's say, for example, you're improvising with the main scale here, the main shape, and then you're going across the second position. And then, you know, let's say you don't know where else to go. you know, you're just here and you're wondering to yourself, oh, well, where should I go? Then you stop the backing track and then you analyze that area. You take a restricted area and you try to go everywhere to that area and from that area. So let's say, okay, we're here, I don't know where else to go. Well, I can go vertically like this. I can go back on the left here with the main position. I can go on the right. You know, you shouldn't be restricted. You have to eliminate all the hesitation. Why? Because you know, you're gonna find yourself improvising, and just because you don't know where to go, you're gonna start to do like, oh shit, I don't know where I'm going, so I stay in my comfort zone. I stay in, you know, in the box that I know. You shouldn't have that. You know, you should be able to play everywhere without restrictions. You know, it's no restrictions at all. So this is very important. You have to know your scales good enough. And good enough doesn't mean simply just vertically, horizontally, diagonally, and every possible directions. Okay, so that's the first thing. You need also to explore the scale in different keys. Like we're playing in A minor, but you know, you should be able to play in G, in D, in E. You know, every key. For a start, you know, if let's say for example you've learned the A minor scale, pentatonic scale as a start, you could carry on with E, G, C and D, for example, pentatonic minor, and you do the same thing. See, you test yourself, see if you really know your scale inside out. That's really important. Okay, so the second thing, the second reason why we're not good at improvising, it's because we're having just a single way to work on our scales. The common way of practicing scales is to play them in a linear way. So not only we go vertically across, just as I talked about earlier on, but it's not enough to just play linear like that. You know, that's one way of playing, but it's called the linear way. You need to, you know, if you want to get better phrases, you should practice the scales in a melodic way. Melodic patterns, that's how we call them, will help you to avoid sounding like you are playing scales all the time. Because it sounds a bit schoolish and scalish. You know, it needs to be more melodic. That's where the melodic patterns come into place. There's many melodic patterns, you know, but since this lesson is more about general improvising tips, I'm just going to show you a couple of them. First of all, with the pentatonic, you probably already know that, but you can play the pentatonic scale the Chinese way, as it sounds like a Chinese song when played with the pentatonic. But it's also called more commonly 3 in a line. It means that's first of all the easiest one to get started with melodic patterns. And for example, if you replace the notes by numbers, it would go 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc. So in let's say in the main shape, it would go this way. You see the difference between linear and that Chinese way here, the 3 in a line. You play 3 notes, you're coming back 1. And if you adapt this skill, this particular technique to your linear way of playing, that sounds straight away more interesting. See, yeah, it's already a good step forward in terms of being more melodic and playing your solo more melodic. The second one, still with the pentatonic scale, but you can play that with the major scale as well. You can play the 3 in a line with the major scale as well. Just bits and pieces that you can integrate it into your solo. That's gonna sound great, but before that you need to work on those patterns separately. So I was saying another one is the 4 in a line. So you have the 3 in a line, the Chinese way, the way it sounds with the pentatonic one, but you have the 4 in a line as well. On the major scales it would sound like this. Sounds nice. You can do that with the pentatonic scale as well. Very nice, you know. You put that on top of what you know already. I play linear, Chinese, and 4 in a line. Wow, it's great. So 3 in a line, 4 in a line, that's one of the 2 melodic patterns that you can start with. The 3 in a line would be easier than the 4 in a line. 4 in a line requires a little bit of anticipation with your fingerings. When you're, let's say I'm going down here, so obviously when I've done this, I have my index on the 5th fret, 2nd string. In order to play the second notes, I need to lay down my index here. See, so. Okay. So this one is a little bit more difficult. I'm not going to show you all those patterns in details. I can do that in another. I actually doing this in another video. I can give you the tabs of all those melodic patterns as well. But it's just to show you all the possibilities. Don't stay stuck into that linear thing. You know, you need to be expressive and melodic. What else you could do? The other thing you could do, you can also play those scales in third. Third means the third note of the scale. So what does that mean? It's like, you know, I'm going to play the minor scale here, natural one. That's my root note. I'm going to take the third of the scale, so the third note. And then I'm going to play the second, and then the fourth. And you have a pattern that goes 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 4, 6. Let's just take that as a start. I can see you're already confused. Don't panic. It's 1, 3, and then 2, 4, and then 3, 5, and then 4, 6. Sorry, 6 here. So. Very nice. If I put that on top, you know, same process, linear, you know, that's great, but Chinese, a little bit nicer. 4 in a line. What else? The third. Imagine if you would have the skill. First of all, imagine if you mastered all those different melodic patterns separately, and if you had the ability to, everywhere on the neck, to be able to mix them up. You would be far away from what you're doing now. So that's great, and that's really worth spending some time working on those melodic patterns. The last two won't be as easy as the Chinese or the three in the line. The first one we just saw, but it's interesting really to have a look, and it's good for your fingers as well. Okay, so what you can do as well on top of this, I should have started with this really, but you can play linear but changing directions at random. Let's say and not, you know, starting always from the top and doing the vertical shape like that. You know, you just change direction randomly. That's really good. And the last thing would be to just play random notes from the scale. You take a particular box, you don't have to go across at this point, although I told you that earlier on, but you take a main shape, for example, and you play random notes. You know, there are so many things that you can do, you have no idea. But just get started with those essential points here, and then you'll be fine. So the thing you have to remember here, just don't play your scale in a linear way, just like that. Just mix them up with sequences, and then you'll be fine. Sometimes you have to tell me stop, because sometimes I can stop playing. Okay, the third reason why your improvisations are not good, your phrasing, you know, the phrasing has a lack of variations. Everything sounds the same, you know, it sounds a little bit like a scale. Partly we're kind of correcting this with all the melodic pattern we just covered, but also you know, having a bad phrasing is common upon young improvisers. So what's the phrasing? Well, it's a lot of things under this general term, but in a nutshell, it is the way you articulate your phrases. You know, just the same as you're talking, you know, you're making phrases, you're making sentences. It's pretty much the same thing. It's the way you express your notes or your licks. You know, you could take the same 3 notes and play them in a large variety of different ways, different rhythms, different effects, and so on. You know, 1, 2, 3 notes. Let's say you could go. You could go. You know, you could apply effects. We're going to talk about the effects a little bit later on. It's just a way of how you express your notes. Sometimes our first solo attempts sound very predictable in the rhythm. All we are playing mostly is 8th notes. In other words, you know, you have a beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're gonna go. Believe me, it sounds silly as I show you it here, but it's easy to get into that trap of having all the notes sound the same, in it equally broken down. It's very easy to fall into that trap. You have to mix it up. The first thing, without going into details, is to make a mix of long notes and short notes. I know it's common sense, but you have to think about that. Let's say, I don't know. You know, I incorporate also silences. Silences are very good. You don't have to play all the time. You're not paid to play, you know, to fill out the blanks. You have to make it breathe as well. Breathe your solo, especially when your background is rich. You know, when you have a full orchestra playing behind you. You know, you don't have to play all the time in order to fill up. For example, this is a good entry for a solo. Don't play like this. You know, different lengths in the note. I won't go into details with how the rhythm could be broken down, but if you get the idea, I'm happy enough. Okay, so that's the rhythm. The second point in the phrasing I wanted to talk about is the use of the effects. I've already used them, you know, use some of them here. Bends and vibratos, for example. Be careful about your bends, guys. It's most of the time it's an effect that is overlooked, you know. There's nothing worse than this. You have to calibrate them, you have to dose them well. Don't go like mad, or don't go too weak. You know, that you have to target a note. Let's say this one here, third string, 9th fret. You have a good way to check this one out with the 5th fret on the 2nd string here. You can see that they sound the same, but no good. Okay? So take the time to work on your bends. This is very, very important. That makes a difference between a good and a bad player, definitely. It's the same with vibratos. You know, you have to dose that and calibrate it the right way as well. Again, I'm not going to go into details, but this is really important. It's the same in general, you know, with other effects, hammer-on, pull-offs. If you have difficulties with hammer-ons or pull-off, then you have to work on them separately. You know, you take a backing track and you do hammer-ons and pull-offs for ages. I did a melodic patterns here on the very last phrase I did, just to show you the importance of mixing everything up, but what's more important on the start is really work on the things separately. If you whatever your situation is, if your bends are not great, you could have great bends, but you know, not so great hammer-ons of pull-offs. Just work on that then. Okay, so that's very important, and even among the effects themselves, I won't enumerate them, all of them, but you know, in a nutshell, you have bends, vibratos, you have slides. Slides are really important. If you want to work over one string, that's really great. This is something you need to be comfortable with, and again, work on them separately. So what I wanted to say is that even among those effects, you have also the double stops. You have different kinds. Let's have a look at let's come back to the bends, for example. You have the most common one, which is the bend and release. Basically, you're bending and you're releasing. That's the most common one. Sometimes you could just do a one-way bend, meaning that you're bending, but you're not releasing it. You're just going to another note. This is important to explore all the options. What else do you have in bends? You could bend first and then, you know, pick the note afterwards. This is a very nice bend. You could pick the bend multiple times. It's limitless, really. So explore that, and most importantly, think about all the options you have. Work on them separately so you really master them, because your second job is to be able to integrate them into your solos. And stop doing like, or maybe more sophisticated than that, but you know, you need to put expression in your playing. So have a good use of the effects. Dose your bends, work on your slides. Sometimes a slide, you know, they could be not precise, or they could not ring so well. You have to work on them, and then you'll be fine. That's it. You have 2 points, 2 main points really on the phrasing. The rhythm, alternating between long notes, short notes, and silences as well. Don't forget the silence. And the proper use of the effects. Work on those effects in order to get them well. This is really, really important. Okay, the fourth reason why your solo doesn't sound so great, this is a very important point as well, is that you're not targeting your phrases towards the chord note. Okay, so you might have noticed that sometimes, you know, you play over a backing track and you're playing random notes of the scales, you're using melodic patterns and plenty of fancy stuff, but still, you know, even though all the notes sound good, some notes will sound better than others, and this is inevitable, you know. Sometimes even you wish that you had made another choice in your, you know, in your note. And this is particularly due to the chord that is played on the background. Sometimes, you know, this is why we have to orientate our phrase finishing or starting on the root note of the chord or one of its components. So just to explain you in a nutshell here, I don't want to go into details again. It sounds like, you know, this session is very general, but we can work on that on another session really. But the chords themselves, if you take, let's say, an A minor chord, okay, well, all the minor and the major chord, they are composed of three main notes. Although you have 6 strings here, only 3 notes will keep coming back. In the case of A minor, you have A, and then you have this note here, which is the 5th of the chord, which is E, and then you have the root note again, A, and then you have a note called C here on the 1st fret 2nd string, which is the 3rd of our A minor, and then E again. So that's A, C, E. That's the component of our A minor. And every major or minor chords, they have 3 notes. Without going into details, what you could do is targeting your phrases on, let's say, the root note of every chord. For example, here I'm using the same backing track. The first chord is A minor, and then I'm going to D minor. As you can hear, I hope for you. And what you can do in order to, you know, give more interest in your solo is orientate your phrase into just the root chord that is on the background. For example, A. So this implies that you have to know the notes on the fretboard. Maybe you don't. well, if you don't know them well, or if you don't know them at all, that's a good exercise to get started. Anyway, let's say our first chord is A minor, right? We just saw that in an A minor you have A, C, E. A, C, E, I'm taking the main shape here. You have an A here, C, there, and E would be there. That's what we call a triad of A minor. Triad means 3 notes. That's the 3 notes that our A minor is composed of. So you can mess around with those 3 notes and you can be sure that over A minor it's going to sound good. But without going into details, you just take the root note as a start. If you're not familiar with, targeting your phrases towards the chord tones, because that's what we are doing here, it's called also the chord tone soloing. It's basically the art of finishing or starting your phrase over the notes of the current chord. Just take the root note as a start. Don't confuse yourself with the 3rd and the 5th, the 2 other notes. Just play with the root notes. So here we have A, and our second chord is D. D is just underneath A, like this. You have it here as well. Here it's on the 10th fret, the two first strings. And you have it here as well. 7th fret of the 4th and 3rd string. So what you do is finishing on A, D. You see, it's more interesting. You know that you're not going to be wrong, because sometimes, where we improvise, I just stayed. I slept on the E note, and the E note over the D chord, the D minor chord, didn't sound so great, as you can see. Well, it's okay, but it's a bit dissonant. If you're targeting the notes of the chord, you're gonna have nicer phrases, definitely. Just a point of warning here: you don't use that all the time, because it's gonna sound too predictable as well. So you need to have dissonance in your solo. Also, the same note could fit. Basically, all the notes from the scale, they should fit into every situation. It's just that sometimes we could target the notes we're playing according to what's on the background, just to make them more beautiful. So let's say I could stay in A all the time. To do the same lick over all the chords. It's fine, but it's just that sometimes you can have a tension that can be resolved by targeting the root note. So it's important to have that in mind. Start with the root notes. Obviously you can repeat the same exercise, and you could repeat the same exercise with other chords. Let's say I'm doing this with A minor and E minor. Let's keep it simple. A, and then E. Well, first of all, you have to spot the notes. A, it hasn't moved, the same place. E is there. That's the 5th string. Sorry, the fifth fret, 2nd string. You have it there. You have it there as well. On the 9th fret, 3rd string. Here's your A. Same process. As I said, you have to stop me if I'm going too far. But this is the basic principle. Start easy. You don't have to. Obviously, you could do the same thing using other than the root, and you could express different things. The root note over a particular chord sounds obvious and really, you know, that's the best match. But you could use the 3rd of that particular chord or the 5th of that particular chord. Let's analyze that. I was saying on in A minor that the 3rd of A minor is C. So you could use C as a target note. In other words, the 3rd of A minor. And for E minor, we can stay on the root and see how it sounds. It's going to have a different coloration. E, C, E, C, the 3rd of A, you know, over an A minor, I'm just going to play an A minor and give you the different coloration of the 3 notes. Basic A minor. A is our root note. C, the 3rd. You see that it's a different mood. Okay, and I'm going to play E this time. E is the 3rd component of A minor. Different mood again. Here I'm playing the 3 one after the other. Root, 3rd, and then 5th. In fact, fact, they express a different emotion. So it's good to play around with that. But as I said, don't start to complicate it. Start with the root of every chord. Try to target your phrases. As I said, you don't have to do it all the time. Be careful with that. It needs to sound unpredictable as well. It's just that sometimes you have to have in mind, first of all, before starting a solo, just check out the chords. If there's 4 or 5 chords, you check out all of them. Try to spot the root note on the fretboard. If you start with a 2-chord progression and check out every A and every D of all over the fretboard. Orientate your phrase. You will see that that's great fun, and you can be sure that it's going to sound good. Around those notes, of course, you can do everything you want. You don't have to be straight away on the very first beat when the D comes to be on the D note. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's just playing around and making nice phrases. Okay. This led me to the 5th reason why your solo doesn't sound so good. Is that the 5th reason is that you're not using arpeggios or triads. Okay, so what's arpeggios and triad? Again, arpeggios and triads, this is a large topic that I'm not going to talk about in details here, but triads and arpeggios are, in a nutshell, a melodic way to play the 3 notes of a chord. A triad, for example, it's just like a mini chord, but play everywhere. Let's talk about our A minor, good old friend A minor. You have this way of doing it. You can play it as a bar chord like this. But if you take ACE, the note ACE, which the A minor is composed of, you have plenty of ACE all over the fretboard. So let's take the A minor chord here played in bar. You could take the first 3 here. Here you have A, C is on the 3rd string, and E is in the middle here. So you could have that background. It doesn't sound so good over the D minor, but I did another triad here of A minor. This is a D minor triad, A minor, D minor, you have to sit down one day and look over all the triads and all the possibility that they offer. Again, you put that on top of all that it's great. Arpeggios, they would be more included in your existing scales. I give you an example of an A minor arpeggio. Again, it's the same 3 note, A, C, E, but they could be, the root could be doubled like this. This is an arpeggio of A minor. D minor. I'm adding up this note here. It's the 7th. It's a note from your scale anyway, but you can add it on top. It doesn't have to be a pure arpeggio, but it's nice. I can do it somewhere else maybe. This is a D minor shape of A minor. and D minor here, the E shape, just a, you know, a bar on the 10th fret, and you know, you can play around with those. It sounds more like a chord if you play only that. You will sound more rhythm than solo, really. But you could sometimes you have a chord progression with a distinctive chord. You could use an arpeggio to play over it. But it's nice to mix it with everything that you know. You know, you can play. It sounds a little bit like Dire Straits, you know, Mark Knopfler. Mark Knopfler is a great player. He has why he's great is because he has first of all he has plenty of things. He has loads of creativity and imagination, but loads of technique. He has a right hand plucking technique that, you know, I think no one else has. But the thing that we don't know is what makes his lead playing and his solos so great is that he's using a lot of those things, triads and arpeggios, because they sound perfect over chords, you know, because you're using the 3 notes of the actual chord, so you can't be wrong. But you can't play only purely with this. Just take it as a tool. But, you know, it's also the secret of a good playing. Mark Knopfler is the master with triads and arpeggios. He's using it all over the place. But it sounds good, you know, on top of his technique, and, you know, he's playing scales as well. Triad can be played in multiple ways. I won't go into details again, but we'll have a lesson. If we didn't have a lesson yet on this, we'll have a lesson in the future, and I'll explain you all that. Okay, so the next point I want to talk about is the 6th reason why we're not so great at playing solos, is that we're not learning new licks. Just simple as that. Not learning new licks, and it's easy to stick with what we know. First of all, generally it's easy to just jam and not learning anything new. You could play a backing track and just play things that you know without developing anything. Don't get into that trap. Don't be confused by just jamming and practicing something, really learning something. For example, if you're new to arpeggios, you take 2 chords like this and you try to explore and experiment your arpeggios over those 2 chords a little bit everywhere on the neck. You know, it requires a lot of time. It's a long and hard work, but you know, if you want to be good, that's it. Coming back to the licks, I've been guilty of this myself, and still I am sometimes. You have constantly to refresh your lick libraries by learning new ones. It's easy to stick with what we know, as I said. The best is to listen to existing solos or melody of your favorite songs, and you just try to copy them. Well, you don't have to copy them note for note. Use your ear, don't use the tabs. You have to develop your ear as well, it's really important. You take simple phrases, not plenty of notes, but a bunch of notes, and you try to reproduce them. It doesn't have to be note for note, but you know, try to be inspired by it as well. And you can add your own variations as well. Let's say, for example, a very common Eric Clapton lick. It's quite long, this one. There's plenty of things that you can do with this. This is in the top of my head. With experience, you're gonna have, you know, more ideas, but you need to get started. So don't use the tab so much unless it's very well-known solos. But you know, try to figure out by ear. Try to transcribe them with your ear. Don't look at something too complicated, but you know, blues is usually good because there's not too many notes. Blues is music very expressive, so you will see the importance of, you know, having right bends and silence and all the things about rhythm and phrasing we talked about earlier on. So yeah, listen to the music in general and analyze the solos, and you will find licks that you really like. Other maybe you might learn them and then you might drop them after a while because you don't like them anymore. It's fine. It makes your fingers work. Don't be afraid doing this. Okay, so that leads me to the seventh reason why. So that leads me to the seventh reason why we're not good at playing solo. It's overplaying. Overplaying. Maybe this is something that you don't feel now because, you know, you've been maybe learning your scales and you don't have a huge dexterity for now, but believe me, this is a problem you will have in the future if you don't have it now. What's this? Overplaying. It's just, you know, playing for the sake of the note, you know. You know, playing for the sake of, you know, showing off your best of your abilities. That's not about that. Although sometimes you have a tempo songs, you know, with a very fast rhythm. Well, yeah, maybe you will play something really fast, but most of the time it's better to do a contrast, let's say, between slow and fast phrases. You know, same idea as alternating between long and short notes. Same idea. You can have, you know, in other cases it's better to have a slow phrase but melodic rather than a phrase a little bit too fast, not very well executed, and, you know, with a bunch of notes that don't have necessarily to be there. You know, less is more. Silence are important, so take that into consideration. Okay, so the eighth reason why we're not great at playing solos is just because we're not improvising enough. This won't make sense, but the best way to learn how to improvise is to actually do it. You know, just do get started, don't wait, even though it doesn't sound the way you would like at the start, even if it sucks, it's fine, you know, get started. You need to experiment. It's a lot about experimentation, doing mistake, trial and error approach, with a little bit of guidance, but, you know, you need to create your own soup. Nothing is going to be perfect anyway, so, you know, improvise as much as you can. Backing tracks are nowadays it's easy to access to a backing track. You go to YouTube, you have all the backing tracks you want, any tempo, any keys, everything is good. So do it as much as you can. It's really important. Also, you know, you have no excuse not to practice, really. You know, you play over a backing track is great. In my time, we didn't have that thing. We were just I had to wait till a mate was available to play the chords for me, so I can improvise along. So we were imagining, you know, I was imagining the backing track and just, or we would play a CD. Yeah, I'm talking about the 90s, you know, when there was no internet. We would play a CD, and even if there was the singing going on and everything going on, we would play over. That was our what we had at the time. But nowadays, wow, it's great. But I'd love to learn guitar now. Okay. The second thing that, well, you're not improvising enough, and that's for sure. Also, you need to, you know, go out of your bedroom and or your living room and play it with other people. It's really important. You know, one of your mates could come up with something that you weren't aware of. You know, if you know a guy with the same skill as you, just get together, guys, and you know, you can play solos one after the other and compare your skills. And it's all great. It's all great, really. If you don't have any mates that could play with you, put an ad, find bandmates, and you know, it's easy. Not everybody works for you, but you know, try stuff, try people. Okay, the very last reason why, and it's a little bit a kind of summary of all the reasons why you're not great at solo, but you will one day, I hope so, especially after that video. The ninth reason why is that you're not working enough on integrating the skills together. We talked a little bit about that. As you may understand that now at this stage, a solo is a clever mixture of different skills. All the skills we talked about, basically. Sometimes you will see that even though we're starting to master a certain technique, let's say, you know, now I'm okay with the pull-offs and the hammers. I get them well. But, you know, it's not that easy to integrate it into a phrase. Where maybe we're overthinking about it, say, oh, okay, I should place that arm there. But, you know, it's not so systematic as it is here. It's very hard to integrate those new skills in our improvisation because sometimes it's because you haven't worked on it separately enough. So it hasn't become yet a second nature. So you really need to work on each of your tools separately. I said it many times during this video, but it's very important. Sometimes it's even more simple than that. You have the skills, you have them, you have your hammer-on and pull-off, or your bends, whatever, your scale sequence, your scale melody pattern. But for some reason you're not thinking about playing it. You know, you're just going back to your comfort zone, or melody pattern. Well, maybe you're thinking about it at the very last moment, but it's not natural. So it needs to be natural. You have a phase of learning separately, all your tools, and then you have a phase of application, integration into other skills, into your existing solos. And this phase is really important. And there could be a huge gap between actually learning the stuff and know how to integrate it. So, you know, once you've got something right, integrate it. Work on integrating it in every possible context. That's really important. So, if we had to sum up everything that you think about, that you have to think about when you're improvising, when you're practicing your improvisation. First, you have to know your scales well. That's, you know, not only vertically, but you have to go across without hesitation. If there's any dark side of the moon, you work on that restricted area. You need to be able to go left, right, north, south, in diagonal, you know, everywhere. So kill all those dark sides of the moon, those hesitation. Then you have to switch the key. Don't stay stuck in A minor or whatever. Next is think about using all your tools. I've said it many times in this video. Really everything from, you know, the phrasing, the scale sequence, the melody patterns, all the effects, bends, slide, hammer-on, pull-offs, you know, double stops. You need to integrate that, so think about using all of them. You can't obviously use them everything at once, but you know, you have to think about using them. About licks, it's cool to learn them and, you know, even copy them note for note from, you know, from another player, but well, you need to create your own variations, but also you could use the same lick in every backing track, but you need to arrange them, you need to stretch them sometimes, you know, if the song is slow and you have a rather you know, fast lick, maybe you need to play it slower or adapt it with the tempo. Maybe sometimes you know, you need to stretch it in order to fit with what you have in the background. But you will learn this with experience. You have to be expressive, you know, all the effects you have to use them on, as I was saying. Of course, you have to integrate all the melodic patterns. You don't play everything linear. Try to integrate also arpeggios and triads, what we see earlier on, all mixed together. About the melodic pattern, obviously you're going to learn them over, let's say, a whole shape like that, let's say. But you're just going to use a small beat of that in your solo, you know. You know, it's just bits and pieces like this. It's not, you're not going to play an overall, a whole shape with the Chinese pattern. Is never going to happen. Although sometimes it could be start to play a solo, like starting a solo like this. See, but it's never going to be the whole shape. The next thing is to be aware of the chords that plays on the background. You know, targeting your phrases towards the chord notes. This is important, not to use it all the time, but sometimes it's good. The last thing would be, you know, be inspired and creative. Stop playing notes, you know, play music. It's hard on the start because you need to sharpen all those tools and you need to be familiar with that technique, and you need to master all those different techniques in order to gain that freedom of doing what you want, basically. And this is really important. So these 9 points are the most common issue that I found among my students, you know, when they start to improvise or even when they have some experience. If their solo doesn't sound great, it's those nice reasons. So you need to think about developing all these points. There is no particular order. Of course, the first thing is to know your scales inside out. That's the base, you know, that's the skill. But then, you know, you don't have to start straight away by the phrasing. You could learn arpeggios and triads. The best thing is to build all those skills at the same time then, once you know the scales well. And think about, as I said earlier, think about improvisation as a language. You know, you have to, you have the notes, it's your vocabulary. And then you have to make sentences, you have to express yourself, including all the melodic patterns, but also all the effects, all the different rhythm, you know, short, long notes, silences, and then, you know, it's like everything else with experience, and the more with experience you will refine your way of playing all the time, and it's never ending. I'm still learning at my level anyway, but it's great. It's great to be able to jam with others, and you know, you have a mate that plays, or a bass player and a drummer that play the backing track, and you just play over. You could jam for hours, assuming that you know all those tools, and that's great. So if there's something you haven't understood, go back to the video. You can always go backwards and forward. Some of the things you already know, maybe other things that you were not familiar with. I'm thinking maybe about the triads or arpeggios. Have a look at that. Start with simple things, you know, even with the phrasing, and you know, you'll be fine. So improvise again. If I had the last word to add, keep improvising, keep practicing over a backing track, experience, explore, and then you'll become good. There's no other secret. Okay? Thanks for watching me. I wish you a nice time, and I see you around. Bye bye bye.